The Dragon King sent the cursed bride through the lantern of Deadwings to prove she carried no flame worth saving. The court had gathered to watch the lantern burn her false. Not kill her, not officially. The Dragon Court preferred prettier words for public death. They called it trial. They called it cleansing. They called it the old mercy of dead wings. If the lantern of Deadwings burned in a bride's hands and turned its flame blue, she carried true bridal fire. If it burned black, she was false, cursed, and unfit to cross the royal threshold. If the flame shaped itself into a dragon, the old law said the court must kneel and listen. That part was never spoken aloud. No one expected the flame to shape itself for Maris Vale. She stood at the center of the wing hall in a torn white bridal gown, her wrists bound with silver thread, her dark hair loosened by ritual hands, her bare feet cold against the black stone. The gown had been chosen to humiliate her. White showed every ash stain, every tremor, every place the court wanted to imagine, corruption hiding beneath innocence. They had named her cursed before she reached the steps, not because she had betrayed anyone, not because she had asked to be bride, because every candle in her village had gone out the night she was born, and 3 dragon eggs in the southern hatchery cracked without hatching. A bad sign, the priests had said. A death bride, the midwives whispered. A girl whose hands would carry dead wings. Now the court had made the whisper official. Above her, the wing hall rose in black arches, carved like folded dragon bones. Thousands of old wing scales hung from silver chains along the ceiling, each one taken from a dragon that had died in service to the crown. When wind moved through the hall, the scales whispered like dry feathers. Tonight, there was no wind, only watching. At the far end of the hall, Dragon King Cassian Veyr sat upon the wingbone throne. He was a man built for command. All black armor, severe beauty, and restrained fire. His dark hair fell around a face that did not soften in public. His eyes were amber gold, but strangely still, like flame trapped behind glass. A crown of black dragon horn rested on his brow. Behind the throne stretched the shadow of a dragon with folded wings, but the shadow never moved. Maris had noticed that the first time she was dragged before him, a dragon king's shadow was supposed to breathe with his beast. Hers had never known court training, but even village children knew that. A king with a living dragon soul cast a restless shadow. Wings stirred when he was angered. Claws lengthened when he lied. Fire gathered when he desired war. Cassian's dragon shadow stood perfect and dead, as if someone had painted it behind him and told the kingdom to call it living. Beside the throne stood Lady Varel, the chosen bride candidate the court preferred. She wore a gown of pale gold and ash-white silk, her red gold hair braided with tiny wing bones, her throat circled by a necklace of black pearls shaped like dragon eggs. She looked at Maris with gentle pity that did not reach her eyes. High Wing Seer Odraven stepped toward the altar. He was tall and narrow, with silver hair falling straight to his shoulders and ceremonial black robes stitched with feathered flame. Around his fingers were rings made from tiny dragon wing bones. Each ring carried a burn mark. One ring twitched when the lantern breathed, like a dead wing remembering flight. Maris looked at them too long. Odraven noticed. His smile was thin. Maris Vale, accused cursed bride, you will carry the lantern of dead wings from this altar to the king's threshold. If the lantern rejects you, dead dragonfire will cleanse the court of your claim. Maris's throat tightened. My claim? She asked. The hall murmured. A cursed bride was supposed to bow her head, not correct a charge. Odraven's eyes sharpened. You were selected by bridal omen. I was taken from my village in chains. Lady Varel sighed softly. The poor girl does not understand honor. Maris looked at her once. Only once. Varel's black pearl necklace pulsed faintly when the lantern of dead wings breathed. One pearl darkened, then glowed again, as if it had swallowed the answer before anyone could hear it. Maris saw it. So did Cassian. The Dragon King leaned forward. The hall quieted with painful speed. "What if the lantern does not reject her?" he asked. Odravan turned. "Majesty, if the flame turns blue, then the bride is not false. And if it forms a dragon?" The silence came too quickly, too sharply. Odravan lowered his head. "That has not happened in centuries. That was not my question." The amber in Cassian's eyes brightened by one shade. Odravan's jaw tightened. "If the flame forms a dragon, the court must hear what soul it carries." Maris felt the words strike the altar before she understood them. What soul it carries? The black lantern at the center of the hall answered with a faint sound. Not a crackle, a breath. It sat on a stone pedestal shaped like folded wings, made from black iron and old dragon bone. Its glass was dark, not clear, and the metal frame curved into the shape of claws around a dead flame. The flame inside was no larger than a candle wick, black at the core, silver at the edges. Dead. Dragonfire. Servants whispered that it did not burn skin first. It burned truth. Cassian's gaze moved from the lantern to Maris's bound wrists. "Remove the silver thread." Odravan's expression cooled. "The rite requires restraint. The rite requires her to carry the lantern, not bleed before she touches it. She is cursed. She is standing." The words should not have mattered. They did. Maris looked down because if she looked at the king then, she might let herself believe that one moment of fairness could become safety. She knew better. Fairness in courts was often only the pause before a deeper knife. Odravan lifted one hand. A guard cut the silver thread. It left thin red lines around Maris's wrists. She did not rub them. The court had already taken too much pleasure from her fear. "Proceed," Odravan said. The dead wing scales above began to tremble. Maris stepped toward the altar. The lantern of dead wings brightened as she approached, though no one had touched it. The flame inside leaned toward her, not away. A whisper moved through the black glass. Late. Maris stopped. Cassian stood, not fully, just enough for the wingbone throne to creak beneath his hands. He had heard it too. Odravan's voice cut sharper. "Take the lantern." Maris lifted her hands. Every story she had ever heard ended with the cursed bride burning. Girls like her did not awaken relics. They proved warnings. They gave courts a body to blame when old magic turned cruel. She closed her fingers around the lantern handle. Dead dragonfire surged up her arms. The hall vanished in black flame. Maris did not scream, not because it did not hurt, because the pain found something inside her that had been waiting in silence. The lantern lifted from the altar. Its black flame turned gold, then silver. Then it shaped itself into a small dragon made of living fire, coiling inside the glass with wings folded tight. Cassian staggered. One hand flew to his chest. The dead dragon shadow behind his throne opened its eyes, and from inside the lantern, a broken dragon voice whispered through the entire hall. "My king, my king." The voice inside the lantern of dead wings broke something in the wing hall. Not loudly, not with thunder or flame. It broke the silence that had held the dragon court together for years. Maris stood at the center of the altar circle, with the black lantern lifted in both hands. Dead dragonfire coiling inside its glass in the shape of a small silver-gold dragon. Its wings were folded tight around its body, its head pressed against the lantern pane, as if it were trying to reach the man on the wingbone throne. Dragon King Cassian Veyr had one hand pressed to his chest. The dead dragon shadow behind his throne had opened both eyes. For the first time, the shadow moved. Only a little. A shudder through the folded wings. A tremor along the tail. But the court saw it. Lady Varel saw it. High Wing Seer Odravan saw it. And Maris, who had been dragged into the hall as a cursed bride meant to burn, saw the king look at the lantern as if something stolen from him had called his name from a grave. No one spoke. Then Odravan struck his staff against the floor. The sound was sharp enough to cut the spell of awe. Extinguish it. The words came too fast, too afraid. Cassian turned his head slowly. No. Odravan bowed, but his hand tightened around the staff. The tiny dragon wing bone rings on his fingers twitched again, one after another, as if whatever slept inside them had heard the lantern and wanted out. Majesty, Odravan said, the flame has taken a forbidden shape. The bride may be carrying dead soulfire. If it reaches you, it could corrupt the royal dragon line. The small dragon inside the lantern opened its mouth. No sound came out, but Cassian flinched as if he had heard a scream. Maris felt it too, not in her ears, in her hands. The lantern was not only warm now, it was trembling with pain. The little dragon flame pressed its claws against the glass, leaving streaks of silver light. It wanted the king. It feared the court. And somehow, impossibly, it trusted her not to drop it. Maris tightened her grip. Odravan noticed. So the cursed bride chooses the flame over the king's safety, he said, turning his voice toward the noble tears. There it was, the trap. Maris knew that tone. Priests in her village had used it after every accident near her name. A goat died. The cursed girl had walked past the pen. A candle went black. The cursed girl had breathed too close. A child cried in sleep. The cursed girl had looked at the moon. The dragon court was larger than her village. Its cruelty only wore better robes. I choose not to throw down something that called for help, Maris said. A murmur moved through the hall. Virella's black pearls pulsed. One darkened, then glowed again. Maris looked at it. The tiny dragon inside the lantern jerked, as if something had been pulled from its wing. Cassian saw her reaction. What happened? Virel answered before Maris could. The bride is unstable, Majesty. The lantern is making her see omens. Maris looked at the necklace. One of your pearls swallowed something. Virel's expression did not change. That made the lie clearer. Odravan's eyes sharpened. Accusing a chosen bride candidate before the lantern rite is an offense. I was not accusing, Maris said, though fear scraped her throat raw. I was telling you what I saw. Cursed eyes see corruption everywhere. Cassian stepped down from the throne. The hall drew back from the motion. His dragon shadow dragged behind him on the wall. No longer still, no longer fully dead, but moving wrong, like a creature waking with broken bones. Maris could not stop looking at it. Cassian stopped at the edge of the altar circle. The lantern flared. The little dragon inside pressed both front claws to the glass, and its silver-gold flame brightened until Maris could see the shape of wings unfolding behind her own shadow on the floor. Not real wings. Not yet. A reflection of something that might have been. Cassian's gaze dropped to the floor. His face changed. Do you see them? He asked. Maris swallowed. Wings? The word went through the hall like a blade. Odraven's rings twitched harder. Cassian's voice lowered. Yes. Virel took one step forward. Majesty, please do not stand so near her. Cassian did not look away from Maris. Why? She is carrying dead dragonfire. No. His eyes fixed on the lantern. She is carrying something that knows me. Odraven's staff struck the floor again, harder this time. That is precisely why she is dangerous. The lantern of dead wings flared black around the edges. Maris gasped as the handle burned into her palms. Not to wound, to show. A vision cracked open inside the glass. She saw a dark chamber beneath the palace, walls lined with black pearls. Cassian stood younger, bare-chested, chained by ceremonial fire to a stone altar. His dragon shadow thrashed behind him, alive then, enormous, golden-eyed, furious. Odraven stood beside him. Not old, not younger by much, but less careful. Veyr stood behind him in pale gold, her black pearl necklace open in both hands. The pearls were empty then. Cassian's dragon shadow lunged toward her, not to attack, to reject. Odraven lifted the lantern of Deadwings, dark and unlit. "If his dragon recognizes the wrong bride," he said, "the court loses the king." Veyr's voice trembled. "And if it never recognizes me?" Odraven looked at the dragon shadow. "Then we teach it not to recognize anyone." The vision shattered. Maris staggered. The lantern nearly slipped. Cassian reached out, then stopped before touching her. That restraint mattered. Even in shock, even with his own missing soul burning inches from him, he did not seize the lantern from her hands. "What did you see?" he asked. Maris looked at Veyr. For the first time, the chosen bride candidate looked truly afraid. Maris said, "They separated your dragon soul." The court erupted. Lies, cursed flame, blasphemy. Odraven lifted his staff. The bride must be silenced. Cassian's voice cut through the uproar. "By whose order?" The wing hall froze. Odraven stared at him. Cassian stepped fully into the altar circle. The lantern of Deadwings rose in Maris's hands as if pulled toward him. The little dragon flame inside stretched its neck, trembling. Cassian lifted one hand, palm open, but still did not touch the glass. "My dragon," he said softly. The words were not meant for the court. That was why they hurt to hear. The flame answered with a small, broken wing beat. Then Veyr screamed. One black pearl at her throat cracked open, releasing a sliver of silver-gold fire that shot toward the lantern. Another pearl darkened, trying to swallow it back, but the flame moved too fast. The sliver entered the lantern. The dragon inside grew larger. Its wings unfurled. Behind Maris, enormous spectral wings opened from shoulder to shoulder, made of dead dragonfire and silver light. Every wing scale hanging from the ceiling began to ring. Odraven's rings split at the bone, and the dragon flame inside the lantern spoke again. Not to Cassian this time, to Maris. "Bride, who carried me first. Bride who carried me first." The words did not bless Maris. They exposed her. Every noble in the wing hall turned toward the cursed bride, holding the lantern of Deadwings, and Maris felt their eyes become sharper than fire. A moment ago they had wanted her burned because she was false. Now they stared, because the dragon flame had named her something older than accusation. Bride, not chosen by the court, not approved by the wing seer, not dressed in gold, like Veyr, carried first. Maris tightened both hands around the black lantern handle. The metal still burned, but the pain had changed. It no longer felt like punishment. It felt like carrying something wounded that trusted her not to let go. The spectral wings behind her remained open. They were not flesh, not shadow. They were made of silver-gold flame and the dim blue glow of dead dragonfire, stretching from her shoulders across the altar circle until the nearest nobles stumbled back from the light. Above her, thousands of dead wing scales trembled on their chains, ringing softly, as if every dragon that had died in service to the crown had heard its lost kin speak. Cassian stood only a few paces away. His hand remained lifted toward the lantern, but he had stopped himself from touching it. Maris saw the cost of that restraint in his face. His jaw was tight, his amber eyes bright with pain, his whole body held like a blade forced not to strike. "My dragon soul," he said. Odraven moved between them, too quickly. The old wingseer's black robe swept across the floor, feathered flame stitching catching the lantern light. His cracked dragon wing rings twitched and scraped against one another, like little bones trying to crawl away. "Majesty, step back." Cassian's eyes did not leave the lantern. "Move. The flame has spoken through a cursed vessel. Every word must be tested. It called me king, So would any soul fire trained to tempt you. The little dragon inside the lantern slammed one claw against the glass. The entire hall shook. Maris gasped as the force ran through her arms. The dragon flame was growing. Not large enough to break free, but stronger now that the sliver from Veyrel's pearl had returned to it. Its wings pressed against the lantern's dark panes. Its eyes, gold and wounded, fixed on Odraven, not with fear. Recognition. Maris looked at Odraven's rings. Each tiny wingbone ring carried a burn mark. One was cracked from the earlier flare, and inside the split bone, she saw a thread of silver-gold fire, trapped like a vein. "You have pieces of him too," she whispered. Odraven turned his head. The hall went silent. Maris wished she could swallow the words back, but the lantern had already brightened in her hands. It heard truth and fed it flame. Cassian looked slowly at Odraven's rings. The Wingseer smiled, but this time the expression had no calm in it. "Dead dragon relics are carried by the temple for preservation." The dragon flame in the lantern snarled. "Li." The word rolled through Maris's bones. She did not repeat it. She did not need to. Cassian heard it. His face went still in a way that frightened the court more than rage would have. Veyrel stepped down from the dais. One hand pressed against the cracked pearl at her throat. The one that had released the soul spark now hung dull and empty. The others glowed softly, trying too hard to look innocent. "Cassian," she said. It was the first time Maris had heard her speak his name without title. The king did not turn. That small refusal cut through Veyrel more deeply than a public insult would have. Maris saw it in the tightening of her mouth, the wounded flash beneath her polished beauty. "The flame is hurting you," Veyrel said, softer now. "You can feel it. I can see it." Cassian's hand dropped slowly to his side. "Yes, then let Odraven contain it, before it tears open what we buried to save you." The words slipped out. Buried. Not protected. Not purified. Buried. Cassian turned at last. "What did you bury?" "Virelle pallid." Odraven struck his staff against the floor again, but this time the lantern of dead wings answered before his authority could settle. The black flame inside the glass flared outward, and a new vision opened across the altar circle. Maris saw the same hidden chamber beneath the palace, but clearer now. Cassian, younger, chained in ceremonial fire, his dragon shadow huge and alive behind him. Odraven holding the lantern. Veyrel, standing with the black pearl necklace, open in trembling hands. The dragon shadow lunged toward the doorway, not at Veyrel, past her, toward something unseen beyond the chamber. A girl's cry echoed from outside the vision. A baby? No, not a baby. A young girl. Maris heard her own name, whispered by a woman she did not remember. "Hide her wings." Then the vision blurred. Odraven lifted the lantern and drove its dead flame into Cassian's dragon shadow. The dragon roared, soundless in memory, as part of its soul tore loose in silver-gold strips. Veyrel's pearls opened one by one, swallowing sparks as they fell. Cassian dropped to his knees in the vision. His eyes went empty. Odraven's voice echoed. "If the dragon finds the wing lantern bride, the court loses its king." The vision shattered. Maris staggered back. The spectral wings behind her flickered, nearly folding. "Wing lantern, bleu." The phrase burned through her, like a name she had never been allowed to know. Cassian had gone parley. No one in the hall dared speak. Then Veyrel did. "You were dying." Cassian looked at her. She took one step forward, desperate now, pride giving way to something raw. "Your dragon was tearing through the palace. It kept searching for something no one could find. It would not eat. It would not sleep. It burned every bride they brought before you. Odraven said if we did not sever the searching part, you would follow it into madness." Odraven's eyes narrowed, but he did not stop her, because that version still helped him. Cassian's voice came low. "And what did you gain?" Virelle flinched. The answer hung between them before she spoke it. "Time," she whispered. Maris heard the lie underneath. Not only time, position, hope, a chance to become the bride the dragon would no longer reject. The black pearls at Virelle's throat pulsed faintly, and one pearl tried to darken again. The lantern flared in Maris's hands. The pearl cracked before it could swallow the next spark. A second sliver of silver-gold fire escaped and flew into the lantern. The dragon flame grew again. This time its head rose above the black glass, not breaking it, but passing through like spirit through water. It looked at Cassian with ancient grief. Then it looked at Maris. "You were hidden from me," Maris whispered. "I do not know you." The dragon bowed its flame-bright head. "I knew you before the court taught you fear." Her chest tightened. She wanted to deny it. Wanted to say she was only Maris Vale, the cursed village girl whose birth darkened candles and cracked eggs. She wanted one part of her life to remain small enough to understand. But the lantern grew warmer in her hands, and the spectral wings behind her steadied. Odraven saw the change. "Been here." He ordered. The Dragon King moved before any guard could. He stepped in front of Maris, not fully shielding her from the court, not claiming her, but placing his body between Odraven's staff and the lantern she carried. The hall stopped breathing. Odraven's voice sharpened. "Majesty, she carries your severed dragon soul." Cassian did not look away. "Then no one touches her until I know why it chose to be carried." Maris stared at his back. She did not trust him. Not yet. But she believed that in this moment he was fighting the same cage she was. The lantern of Deadwings rose between them, pulling against her grip, not toward Cassian's chest, toward the floor beneath the altar. Maris looked down. The black stone under her feet began to glow with the shape of folded wings. Odraven's face changed. Virelle whispered. "No." Cassian turned. "What is beneath this hall?" Neither answered. The lantern did. The flame dragon opened its wings inside the glass, and the floor split along the glowing lines. From below came the sound of wings dragging through chains, and a woman's voice whispered from the darkness beneath the court. "Bring me the bride who can carry dead fire." The floor beneath the wing hall opened like a wound. Black stone split along the glowing lines of folded wings, and cold air rose from below, carrying the smell of ash, old iron, and feathers burned too slowly. The nobles screamed and drew back. Wing scales hanging from the ceiling rang harder now. Thousands of dead dragon remnants trembling on their silver chains. Maris stood at the edge of the opening, with the lantern of Deadwings burning in both hands. Inside the black glass, the little dragon flame pressed its claws outward. Its wings had grown larger, silver gold, and ragged at the edges, as if pieces of it were still missing somewhere under the court. From below, the woman's voice came again. "Bring me the bride who can carry dead fire." Maris could not move. "Bride." Again, the word circled her like a chain that had learned to sound holy. Cassian stood beside her now, one step in front but not blocking her. His face was set in the hard, controlled mask of a king before witnesses, yet his dragon shadow betrayed him. Behind him on the wall, the once dead shadow strained toward the opening in the floor, wings trembling as if something underneath had called its bones by name. Odraven stepped forward too quickly. "Seal the floor." No one moved. He turned on the guards. "Seal it." The guards hesitated, not out of courage, out of fear. The lantern of Deadwings had spoken. The king's dragon shadow had moved. The floor had opened beneath a rite that was supposed to condemn a cursed bride. And now, everyone in the wing hall could feel the old law watching. Cassian's voice came low. "What is beneath my hall?" Odraven's jaw tightened. A dead archive. Then why is it calling for her? Because dead things hunger for vessels. The lantern flared. Li. The word did not echo aloud, but every dead wing scale above rang once, sharp and accusing. Maris looked at Odraven's rings again. Tiny wing bones, burn marks, trapped silver-gold threads inside the cracks. You took wings from below, she said. Odraven's eyes snapped to her. The fear in them was small. Enough. Varel stood near the throne steps. One hand clamped over her black pearl necklace. 2 pearls were cracked now, dull and empty, while the remaining ones glowed faintly, as if swallowing whispers before they could become testimony. Her face was pale beneath its practiced beauty. Maris turned to her. You know what is down there. Virel's mouth tightened. I know what it costs when a dragon king loses control. Cassian looked at her. The pain in that look was not soft. It was dangerous. And who taught you that fear? He asked. Virelle did not answer. Odraven lifted his staff. The cursed bride will not descend. Cassian stepped closer to Maris. That is not your command. No, Odraven said, and the calm vanished from his voice. It is yours, Majesty. If she carries what remains of your dragon soul into the Wing Crypt, the soul may bind to her before it returns to you. The court will call her bride by flame, law. You will lose authority over your own dragon. Maris felt the trap change shape. It was not only fear of her dying now, it was fear of her mattering. The lantern warmed painfully in her hands, but she held on. Cassian looked down at the open floor. If she does not descend? Odraven's silence answered first. Then the woman below spoke. Then what was severed remained severed. Cassian's face became still. Maris heard the old grief beneath the words. Not hers, his. A king who had lived for years with a dragon shadow painted dead behind him, told it was order, told it was safety, told the emptiness inside his chest was the price of ruling. She knew something about being told a wound was proof of guilt. Cassian turned to her. You do not have to go. The words landed quietly, strangely. She had expected command. Suspicion. A king's need disguised as duty, not choice. The lantern flame curled around her fingers. The small dragon inside watched her through the glass, not demanding, waiting. Maris looked at the open floor. If I go, you do not take the lantern from me. Cassian's answer came at once. No, if it speaks through me, you do not let them call my body a crime. His eyes sharpened. No, and if your dragon chooses something you do not like? That made him pause. Not long, long enough to matter. Then he said, then I will hear it before I fear it. Maris did not trust him fully, but she believed that sentence. For now, she stepped toward the opening. Odrave struck. Black flame shot from his staff toward the lantern handle. Cassian's dragonfire intercepted it, gold against black, the force throwing sparks across the cracked floor. Maris stumbled, and the lantern nearly slipped. A hand caught her elbow. Virelle. Maris looked at her in shock. The chosen bride candidate looked just as startled by her own movement. For one breath, they stood close enough that Maris could see the cracks in Virel's pride. Fear, jealousy, shame. A woman who had been taught that if the dragon did not choose her, she would become nothing. Virel released her quickly, as if the contact burned. Do not mistake that, she whispered. I won't, Maris said. Virel's face hardened again, but one of the black pearls at her throat trembled. Odraven saw. His expression turned cold. If you pity her, he said to Virel, remember what you are without the pearls. The words struck her harder than any slap. Maris saw it. Cassian saw it. Virel did too, and hated them both for witnessing. The lantern tugged downward. Maris descended first. The stairs beneath the wing hall were narrow, carved from black dragon bone, and slick with silver ash. Cassian followed behind her, close enough that his warmth cut through the crypt. Cold, but not close enough to crowd her. Above them, the court remained fractured around the open floor. Odravan's commands faded into echoes. The passage spiraled down into the dark. The lantern lit the way. As they descended, images appeared along the walls. Brides carrying black lanterns through battlefield smoke, dead dragons curling their last flames into glass vessels, women standing beneath enormous spectral wings, while kings knelt before returning souls. Wing lantern brides, not cursed brides. Carriers, guardians. Maris's throat tightened. How many were there? She whispered. Cassian's voice came behind her, low and rough. I was taught they were a myth. The lantern answered. Not myth. Buried. At the bottom of the stairs, the passage opened into a vast crypt beneath the wing hall. The Wing Crypt. Hundreds of black lanterns hung from the ceiling, each dark, each shaped from wingbone and iron. Beneath them lay enormous dragon skeletons, their wings folded over empty rib cages. At the center of the crypt stood a woman bound to a stone pillar by chains of black pearl and dead fire. She had long white hair, dark skin marked with silver burns, and folded spectral wings pinned behind her by iron hooks. Maris's breath stopped. The woman lifted her head. Her eyes were blind, but they found Maris anyway. Wing, lantern bride, she whispered. Cassian stepped forward. Who are you? The woman's mouth curved with bitter sorrow. The first bride they failed to burn. The lantern in Maris's hands rose. Its dragon flame pressed toward the chained woman. She looked at Cassian then, blind eyes shining with dead fire. And the last witness to the night, they stole your dragon soul. The first bride they failed to burn, hung in the Wing Crypt beneath the dragon court. For one breath, Maris could not understand the shape of what she was seeing. The woman was alive, not whole, not free, not untouched by years of dead fire, but alive. Her long white hair fell around her shoulders in tangled waves. Silver burn marks crossed her dark skin like broken constellations. Behind her, spectral wings of pale flame had been pinned open by black iron hooks, each hook driven through the light, as if fire itself could be nailed to stone. Around her body hung chains made of black pearls, the same kind Veyr wore around her throat. Maris's grip tightened around the lantern of dead wings. Inside the glass, the dragon-shaped flame pressed toward the chained woman, trembling so hard the lantern frame shook. Cassian stepped closer. What is your name? The woman laughed softly. It was not amusement. It was ash. They took that first. The words moved through the crypt like cold water. Hundreds of black lanterns hanging overhead answered with faint flickers. Not flames, memories trying to wake. Beneath them, the dragon skeletons rested with their wings folded over empty ribs, as if even dead beasts had learned to hide what was missing. Cassian's face hardened. Who took it? The woman's blind eyes shifted toward the stairway behind them. The men who taught your court that a nameless bride is easier to burn. Maris felt that like a hand around her throat. Nameless, cursed, false. All the pretty ways a court made a woman easier to destroy. The lantern warmed against her palms, but not painfully now. It seemed to draw courage from her grip, as if her refusal to drop it gave the flame permission to keep existing. Cassian looked at the black pearl chains. Odravan. The chained woman smiled faintly. Odravan was not the first, only the one who learned to make theft look like protection. Maris stepped forward before fear could stop her. You said you witnessed the night they stole his dragon soul. The woman's head tilted. Not witnessed, she said. Carried. The lantern flared. A vision opened in the air between them. The Wing Crypt changed. Maris saw the chamber years earlier, brighter with living dragonfire and filled with people in black ceremonial robes. Cassian stood at the center, younger, furious, chained by rings of dead fire. Behind him towered his dragon soul, not a shadow, not a flame, but a vast golden-black dragon made of spirit, wing, smoke, and royal rage. Its wings beat against the ceiling of the crypt, shaking every lantern. Odraven stood before it, with the lantern of dead wings in both hands. Beside him stood the chained woman, younger then, unbound, wearing a torn bridal gown and carrying another black lantern against her chest. Cassian's dragon lunged toward the outer door. Searching, always searching. Odraven shouted, "Hold it!" The younger bride cried out as the dragon's soul fire slammed into her lantern. She did not burn. She bent beneath the weight, but she held it. Maris understood then. A wing lantern bride did not command dead dragonfire. She survived carrying it. Odraven's voice cut through the vision. If the dragon reaches the girl, the bond completes before the court can stop it. The younger bride looked up sharply. "What girl?" Odraven struck her across the face. "The one you will forget." The vision shifted. A child hidden behind a carved stone screen. Small, dark-haired, barefoot, watching with wide eyes. Maris's breath stopped. Herself, not as she was now, but younger. 5, perhaps 6. Too young to understand the royal chamber, old enough to remember terror without knowing its name. A woman pulled the child back into shadow, whispering, "Do not let the lantern see you cry." The vision shattered. Maris staggered backward. Cassian turned toward her. "You were there. I don't remember." But that was not true. Not fully. She remembered black stone under bare feet. A woman's hand over her mouth. The smell of burned feathers. A scream inside glass. She had buried it so deep it had become part of the curse story told around her birth. The chained woman spoke softly. "They made you forget because you were already chosen." Maris shook her head. "Chosen by whom?" The lantern answered. The dragon flame inside lifted its head. "Me." The word broke through her. Cassian closed his eyes as if struck. Maris looked from the flame to the king. "Your dragon chose a child?" The chained woman's voice sharpened. "No. It found the bloodline that could carry it safely when they tore it away from him. Wing, lantern brides are not made for men's desire. They are made for dragon souls that would otherwise be destroyed." That mattered. More than the court would ever understand. Bride had sounded like claim. Now it sounded like burden, like danger, like a doorway no one should force open. Cassian opened his eyes. "Then why did Odraven call her my true bride?" "Because fear makes rulers easier to lead," the woman said. "If they told you a bride held your dragon soul, you might seek her. If they told her she was cursed, she would hide. If they told the court she was false, they could burn every woman who carried the old gift." The black pearl chains around her body pulsed. Maris looked at them. "And Veyrell's pearls." The chained woman's mouth tightened. "Soul catchers. They swallow sparks before truth forms words." The lantern flame snarled. Above, one of the hanging black lanterns lit for a heartbeat. Inside it, a tiny dragon-shaped flame beat broken wings against the glass. Then another lantern flickered, and another. The Wing Crypt was full of stolen dragon soul sparks. Cassian saw it. The expression that crossed his face was not rage first. It was horror. "How many dragons?" he whispered. The chained woman answered, "How many kings did the court fear recognizing the wrong woman?" The crypt went silent. Then footsteps sounded on the stairs. Slow, measured. Odraven descended first, his black robes trailing over the steps, rings twitching violently now. Behind him came Veyr, pale and rigid, one hand on her cracked pearl necklace. Guards followed with wing-bone spears. Odrevin looked at the chained woman. His face did not change, still speaking without permission. He said. The woman smiled. Still afraid of names. Veyrel's gaze moved to the hundreds of lanterns above. For the first time, she looked uncertain. You told me the pearls held unstable fire. They do, Odrevin said. Truth is very unstable in the wrong hands. Cassian stepped between Odrevin and Maris. This time, fully. A clear barrier. A king's choice before witnesses. Odrevin's eyes narrowed. Majesty, do not let the cursed bride turn your compassion against your crown. Cassian's voice was cold. My crown has been wearing my missing dragon like a chain. The lantern in Maris's hands flared bright. The chained woman lifted her head. Break my first chain, she whispered, and the crypt will show the court what it buried. Odrevin moved. So did the guards. Maris did not think. She stepped around Cassian and lifted the lantern of dead wings toward the chained woman. Cassian reached as if to stop her, then forced himself still. Choice. He remembered. The dragon flame inside the lantern stretched one wing through the glass and touched the first black pearl chain. The pearl cracked. Veyr screamed, clutching her necklace as one of her pearls split open too. A storm of silver-gold fire burst through the crypt. Above them, every dead wing scale in the wing hall began to ring, and the chained woman's forgotten name burned across the air in living flame. Serelith. Serelith. The name burned across the wing crypt in living flame, and every black lantern overhead answered. Not brightly. Not yet. A tremor of silver-gold fire passed from one dead vessel to the next. Like sleeping dragons, hearing a forgotten wing beat in a dream. The black pearl chain around the bound woman cracked where the lantern's flame touched it, and a sound escaped her throat. Not a scream, not relief, but the first breath after years of being forced to hold silence inside her ribs. Maris lowered the lantern of dead wings, shaking. The dragon flame inside pressed close to the glass. Wings spread now, its small burning body larger than it had been in the court above. Every piece returned from Veyrel's pearls made it stronger. Every truth spoken gave it shape. Odrevin stared at the name with hatred stripped clean of ceremony. Do you think a name frees a traitor? He asked. Serelith lifted her blind eyes toward him. No, it frees the record you buried with her. The crypt walls ignited, not with destructive fire, with memory. Around them the black stones filled with images. Serelith, young and unchained, carrying a lantern through a battlefield of fallen dragons. Serelith kneeling beside a dying dragon and holding its last flame without burning. Serelith standing before a council that demanded she surrender the soul she carried. Serelith refusing, not with a sword, but with both hands wrapped around a black lantern, and her wings spread behind her like a vow. Wing lantern. Bull. Not cursed bride. Not false bride. Bear. Witness. Guardian of lost dragon souls. Maris stared at the visions, unable to look away. Her whole life, the word cursed had followed her like smoke. It had explained every misfortune before she could defend herself. It had taught villagers to step back from her shadow. It had made priests point toward her cradle, and mothers pull children away from her hands. But the crypt did not show cursed women. It showed women who carried fire no court could control. Veyr watched too, pale and rigid. The black pearls at her throat trembled, one by one. You told me they were dangerous, she whispered. Odrevin did not turn. They are. You told me they stole dragons from kings. They did. Serelith's mouth curved faintly. No, we carried what kings could not survive losing. The vision changed again. A dragon king before Cassian's time knelt beside a dying dragon. A wing lantern bride held the creature's last flame in a lantern until the king could release it properly into the royal pyre. Another bride carried a dragon soul through war, so it would not be devoured by enemy priests. Another stood between a crown and madness, holding a king's fractured dragonfire until he could face it without destroying the realm. Maris looked at Cassian. His face had gone still. The kind of stillness that meant something inside him was breaking carefully, piece by piece. "How many did you burn?" he asked. Odraven's jaw tightened. "Enough to preserve the throne." Cassian's voice dropped. "How many?" The lanterns above flickered before Odraven could answer. One lit fully. Inside it, a thin dragon flame curled around itself. A woman's voice whispered from the glass. "I carried Prince Orvan's soul through the red fever. They called me false when he woke and reached for me." Another lantern lit. "I held a hatchling's fire for 3 nights. They took my name and gave my flame to a bride with pearls." Another. "I was summoned. I was used. I was burned before I could speak." The voices multiplied until the crypt filled with them. Maris pressed one hand over her mouth, not because she wished them silent, because she could not hold all their grief and keep standing. Cassian stepped closer, but stopped before touching her. Maris. Just her name. No command. No claim. It helped more than she wanted it to. Odraven raised his staff. "These are relic echoes. Nothing more." The dragon flame inside Maris's lantern turned its head toward him. "Li." This time the word rang aloud. Every lantern shook. Every wingbone ring on Odraven's fingers cracked wider, and from inside each tiny bone came a muffled wing beat. Maris looked at his hands. "Your rings are not relics," Serelith answered for him. "They are locks." Odraven moved fast. He drove the end of his staff into the floor, and black fire shot across the crypt toward the hanging lanterns. The flames wrapped around them like cages, smothering each waking spark before it could grow. The voices cut off, one by one. Maris felt the sudden silence like hands closing around her throat. "No," she whispered. The lantern of dead wings flared in her grip. Odraven pointed at her. "That is what she does, Majesty. She opens what was buried. Give her 1 night, and every sealed dragon grief in your kingdom will crawl back into the court. Every dead bride, every forbidden bond, every soul too unstable to return. She is not salvation. She is collapse." The accusation struck too close to Maris's oldest fear, that wherever she went, light failed, that what she carried ruined rooms, that the world became safer when she was quiet, hidden, blamed, and far away. Cassian turned toward Odraven. "No," he said. "Collapse is what happens when a court builds its peace over stolen souls." The dragon flame in the lantern lifted its head. Vyrel looked at Cassian then, and whatever she saw in his face wounded her deeper than anger could have. "You would risk everything for her?" she asked. Cassian did not look away from Odraven. "I would risk everything to know what was done to me." Vyrel's mouth trembled. "That is not the same." "No," he said quietly. "It is not." Maris heard the honesty in it. It mattered. He was not pretending this was love. Not yet. Not some sudden devotion born from a lantern's claim. He wanted his dragon back. He wanted truth. He wanted the part of himself they had carved away. And still, he had not taken the lantern from her hands. That mattered too. Serelith strained against the remaining pearl chains. "Break the second chain." Odraven's eyes flashed. "If she breaks it, the court above will see the extraction." Cassian looked at him. "Good, Majesty. Break it," Cassian said. Then he turned to Maris, and his voice changed. "If you choose." The words steadied her. Maris lifted the lantern. The little dragon flame stretched one burning wing towards Serelith's second chain. The moment it touched the pearls, pain tore through Maris's wrists. She nearly dropped the lantern, but Cassian's hand came under hers, not closing around the handle, only supporting the weight beneath her fingers. Her mission not possession. Together, they held it steady. The second chain cracked. A vision exploded across the crypt. Cassian saw himself younger, bound by dead fire. Odraven splitting his dragon soul with the lantern of dead wings. Veyrel's pearls swallowing sparks. Serelith forced to carry the largest fragment until her wings were pinned to stone. And outside the chamber, hidden behind a carved screen, a little dark-haired girl with tear-bright eyes was marked by the dragon soul as the one vessel it trusted. Maris. The vision burned brighter. Odraven's voice echoed from the past. Find the child. Curse her before the dragon can name her. Maris could not breathe. Cassian's hand beneath hers went rigid. Above them, through the crypt ceiling, the wing hall erupted in shouts as the vision rose into the court for every noble to see. The second chain shattered. Serelith lifted her head fully, and behind Maris, her spectral wings opened wider than the crypt itself. The spectral wings behind Maris opened wider than the Wing Crypt itself. They did not break the stone. They passed through it. Silver-gold flame rose from her shoulders in vast translucent arcs, sweeping through the crypt ceiling and into the wing hall above. Every noble standing over the split floor saw them unfold behind the cursed bride, like the memory of a dragon that had refused to die. The dead wings' scales hanging from the hall ceiling rang so violently that some snapped from their chains and fell, striking the black stone like silver rain. Maris nearly collapsed beneath the weight of them. The wings were not hers. Not fully. They were made of Cassian's stolen dragon soul, Serelith's buried witness, and every wing lantern bride whose flame had been sealed inside dead glass. They moved through her because she could carry them, but carrying was not the same as owning. She felt that difference as pain, pressure, and grief, so vast it almost stole her voice. Cassian's hand remained beneath hers, supporting the lantern's weight without closing over it. Breathe, he said. She wanted to snap that she knew how, but she did not. Not then. So she obeyed, dragging air through her teeth, while the lantern burned between them. Above, the court shouted in panic. She has wings. Dead fire. No, dragonfire. The king's dragon. In the crypt. Odraven staggered back from the shattered chain. His rings had cracked open across 3 fingers, and from each split bone came a trapped flicker of wing-shaped flame, beating weakly against old marks of binding. Veyrel stared at the vision still burning across the vault walls. Her face had gone colorless. She had seen herself in that memory, not as a bride defending a kingdom, not as a woman saving a king from madness. She had seen herself standing beside Odraven, while black pearls swallowed pieces of Cassian's dragon soul. Her hand closed around the necklace. One pearl cracked under her fingers. A thin sliver of silver-gold flame leaked out and flew toward the lantern. Odraven saw it. Do not, he snapped. Veyrel flinched at the old command. Maris saw that too. The chosen bride candidate, the court's golden favorite, the woman who had looked at Maris with perfect pity, had been trained by fear as surely as Maris had been trained by shame. Not the same wound, not the same guilt, but a wound all the same. Veyrel's eyes lifted to Cassian. I thought I was keeping you alive. Cassian's gaze did not soften. You were keeping me incomplete. The words struck her. She looked down. The pearl in her hand split wider. Another spark escaped. Then another. The dragon flame in the lantern grew, its body pressing harder against the glass, wings beating in rhythm with the spectral wings behind Maris. Cassian inhaled sharply, one hand pressing to his chest as if every returning spark opened a sealed wound under his ribs. Maris turned to him. Is it hurting you? Yes. The honesty was immediate. Do you want me to stop? Odraven laughed bitterly. Listen to her. The cursed bride thinks she can pause the return of a king's soul. Cassian ignored him. He looked only at Maris. Not if stopping means leaving it chained. That answer unsettled her, because it was not selfish enough to hate. Serelith lifted her bound hands. 2 chains remained across her wings, black pearls sunk deep into spectral flame. "The next chain holds the court's lie," she said. "Break it, and every bride burned by the lantern will be named." Maris looked up at the hundreds of hanging lanterns. So many dark vessels, so many silent flames. Her arms shook. "I cannot carry all of them." Serelith's blind eyes softened. "You do not carry them to keep. You carry them to the door." A door. Maris almost laughed. Courts loved turning women into doors. Doors to thrones, doors to heirs, doors to alliances, doors to sacrifice. The lantern warmed before she could grow bitter. Not door, wing. The word moved through her hands. A wing did not trap what passed through it. A wing lifted. Cassian heard it too. "Then we lift them." "Ve." Maris looked at him sharply. He held her gaze. "If they used my name to chain them, my name will help free them." Before she could answer, Odravan struck. Black deadfire shot from his staff towards Serelith's pinned wings. The old bride cried out as the iron hooks flared. The lantern in Maris's hands surged forward, dragging her toward the chain circle. Cassian moved with her, but the force threw him hard against the nearest dragon skeleton. "Cassian!" Virella screamed. The king hit the stone ribs and dropped to one knee, his dragon shadow above, projected through the crypt ceiling into the wing hall. Convulsed, Odravan raised his staff again. "Now you see why the soul was separated. His dragon answers old grief before crowned safety. It would ruin the kingdom for dead women and cursed brides." Maris turned on him. "Dead women and cursed brides are why your kingdom still has a soul left to steal." The words came from her, but the lantern carried them. Every hanging vessel flared. Odravan's expression twisted. Maris stepped towards Serelith's 3rd chain. Pain tore up her spine as the spectral wings behind her lifted. She nearly fell, but Virel moved. This time, she did not simply catch an elbow. She stepped beside Maris and ripped 3 black pearls from her own necklace. Blood welled at her throat, where the necklace resisted. Odravan shouted her name. Virel's mouth trembled, but her fingers closed around the pearls. "I am done wearing pieces of him." She crushed them. Silver gold flame burst free and shot into the lantern. The dragon inside roared for the first time, small but unmistakable, and Cassian's eyes flashed bright gold from where he knelt. The 3rd chain around Serelith shattered. Above, the wing hall filled with voices. Names, one after another. Brides who had carried dragonfire and been condemned before they could speak. Brides from border villages, noble houses, burned temples, battlefield tents. Women called cursed because their bodies could survive the grief of dragons. The court heard them all. Maris felt each name pass through the wings behind her and rise upward, not staying inside her, not making her a vessel to be locked away, but flowing through her like fire through open air. Odravan stumbled. His wing bone rings broke across both hands. From inside the rings, tiny trapped flames flew toward the lantern. The dragon inside grew larger again, too large for the glass now. Cracks raced across the black panes. Cassian rose, unsteady but standing. "Maris," he said. She knew. If the lantern broke before the soul was whole, the dragon might tear through the crypt and burn everyone in its path. If they stopped now, Odravan would use that danger to cage it again. Serelith's voice cut through the rising flame. "One chain remains." The final chain ran through her pinned wings and down into the crypt floor, disappearing beneath the stone. Odravan backed toward it, not to protect himself, to pull it. Cassian saw. So did Maris. The king lunged, but Odravan reached the chain first and wrapped both hands around it. His broken rings bled dead fire into the links. "If the dragon wants its bride," he said, voice ragged, "let it consume her." He yanked the final chain. The crypt floor split open beneath Maris. The lantern of dead wings tore from her hands and plunged into the dark below, dragging her spectral wings after it. Cassian reached her too late. Maris fell with the dragon soul's fire still wrapped around her wrists, and from the darkness beneath the crypt, something enormous opened its dead wings. Maris fell into a place where dragons went after fire, not death, something older. The darkness beneath the Wing Crypt opened around her like a sky without stars. She dropped through cold ash, dead flame, and the sound of wings too large for any hall. The lantern of dead wings spun below her, its cracked glass bleeding silver-gold fire. Spectral wings streamed from Maris's wrists, dragged downward by the falling lantern, not tearing from her, but pulling everything she had just learned through her bones. She struck black water. It did not splash. It swallowed. For one breath, she sank beneath the surface, with the lantern burning below her like a drowned star. Around her floated the shapes of enormous dragon wings, broken and folded, each one made of dead fire and old grief. Their bones were not bones. They were memories, battles, betrayals, lost flights, souls trapped before release. Then something opened its eyes beneath her. A dragon. No, the place where a dragon soul became hunger after being torn apart too long. It was vast, silver gold at the core and blackened at the edges, with wings full of holes where stolen sparks had been cut away and fed into pearls, rings, and court rites. Its head rose from the black water, crowned with dead fire. Its eyes were Cassian's flame, and not Cassian's flame, older, wilder, wounded past reason. The lantern floated between them. Maris tried to move toward it, but spectral fire wrapped around her wrists and held her suspended in the dark. The dragon spoke, without opening its mouth. Why did he not come? The question broke through her chest. Not accusation. Abandonnement. Maris swallowed water that was not water, and somehow breathed anyway. He tried. The dragon's wings unfolded. The dark place trembled. Kings, try after the cage is built. The words were bitter enough to burn. Above, distant and distorted, Cassian's voice called her name. It sounded far away, trapped behind stone, chain, and old law. Maris looked upward. A thin crack of gold showed the Wing Crypt above. Cassian was there, fighting to reach her. She could feel it through the lantern, through the thread of soul fire still wrapped around her hands. Odraven had not only thrown her down here, he had thrown her into the part of Cassian's dragon soul that had been left alone too long to trust rescue. The dragon lowered its enormous head. Bride, who carried me first. I did not choose that name. No, the answer came at once. That was why I chose you. Maris still. The dragon's eyes softened by a fraction, though the darkness around it still writhed like torn wings. They chose brides who wanted crowns. They chose brides who wanted safety. They chose brides trained to take what court gave. I chose the child who cried when caged fire screamed. A memory opened across the black water. Maris, as a little girl behind a carved stone screen, both hands pressed over her mouth. The dragon soul, half torn from Cassian, thrashing against the lantern's pull. Odraven chanting, Virel crying silently while pearls swallowed sparks, and Maris small, terrified, shaking, reaching one hand through the screen toward the dragonfire because it sounded hurt. Not cursed, compassionate, before she knew the cost. The memory vanished. Maris's throat tightened. Then, why did every candle die when I was born? The dragon exhaled. Dead wings answered living hands. Around them, broken dragon wings stirred in the black water. Your blood called what others buried. The village feared the dark, because it heard me before you did. Maris closed her eyes. All her life, the curse story had been a wall. Now it opened into a wound made by someone else. Above, the gold crack widened. Cassian's voice came clearer. Maris. The dragon's head snapped upward. The dark place shook with rage. He comes because he wants his soul. Yes, Maris said. The dragon's eyes narrowed. Maris forced herself not to look away. And because he stopped himself from taking it from my hands. Silence. That truth mattered. She felt it strike the black water and move outward in ripples. The dragon had been stolen by people who called theft protection. It would know the difference between taking and waiting. Maris lifted her bound wrists. I cannot carry you if you turn me into another cage. The dragon lowered closer. You fear being used. Yes. You fear being named bride. Yes. You fear him. Maris thought of Cassian stepping between her and Odrevin, stopping before touching the lantern, asking if she chose. She thought of his pain, his restraint, his fury at the truth. I fear what courts do with kings' needs. The dragon was still for a long moment. Then the spectral fire around her wrists loosened. Wise. The lantern rose from the black water. Its cracked panes glowed brighter now, but did not break. The dragon bent its vast head toward it, and Maris understood. The lantern was not a prison when held by a wing lantern bride. It was a passage. A soul could pass through without consuming the hands that carried it, but only if the soul consented to return, and only if the carrier chose to open. The gold crack above split wider. Cassian dropped through it. He hit the black water on one knee, armor smoking, one hand braced around a broken wingbone chain. He had forced his way down. Blood ran from his temple. His dead dragon shadow flickered behind him, torn between the empty shape above and the living soul before him. Maris, he said, only her name. The dragon turned on him. Flames surged across the black water. Cassian did not step back. You left me, the dragon said through the dark. Cassian's face went white. I did not know how to find you. You stopped searching. The words struck him visibly. Maris saw the pain cross his face before he mastered it. For years they had told him the emptiness was order, told him the silence was survival, told him the missing hunger was sanity. But underneath, some part of him had known. Cassian lowered his head. Yes, he said. I did. The dragon's rage faltered. Not forgiveness. Recognition of truth. Cassian looked up again. His voice was rough. I let them teach me that stillness was strength. I let them call the absence discipline. I sat on a throne with your shadow dead behind me and called it control because I was afraid of what waking would cost. Maris listened, barely breathing. A king admitting fear inside his own severed soul. No speech for the court. No performance. No defense. The dragon moved closer. And her? It asked. Cassian's gaze shifted to Maris. The dark place seemed to hold its breath. She is not the price of my return, he said. The lantern flared. Maris felt the answer in her hands before the dragon spoke. Then ask. Cassian looked at her. Not the lantern. Not the wings. Here, Maris Vale, he said, voice low. Will you carry my dragon soul back only as far as you choose? Her chest hurt. Not from fire, from the terrible gentleness of being asked, while standing inside someone else's need. She looked at the enormous dragon. And if I cannot carry all of you, the dragon folded its torn wings. Then carry the truth first. The lantern of dead wings opened. Its black iron frame unfolded like a flower of claws and wings. Silver gold fire rose from inside, forming a path between dragon, bride, and king. Maris lifted both hands. I will carry the truth, she said. Not his claim, not the court's demand, not a bride name used like a chain. Cassian bowed his head once. Truth first. The dragon exhaled. Its soul fire entered the lantern. Maris screamed as spectral wings burst fully behind her, not dragging her down now, but lifting her. Cassian caught the lantern's chain beneath her hands, taking part of the weight without taking control. Together, they rose from the black water. Above them, the Wing Crypt split open with silver-gold fire, and when Maris returned, every lantern of dead wings ignited at once. Every lantern of dead wings ignited at once. The Wing Crypt became a sky of trapped dragonfire. Hundreds of black lanterns hanging from the ceiling flared silver gold, each one holding a soul spark the court had buried under the name of safety. Small flames beat against glass. Larger flames coiled like sleeping dragons forced awake. Some burned blue with grief, some gold with fury. Some were so faint they looked like candlelight fighting for breath. Maris rose from the split in the crypt floor, with the lantern of dead wings in both hands. Behind her, spectral wings blazed wide enough to fill the chamber. Cassian rose beside her, one hand under the lantern chain, not taking its weight from her, but sharing it. His armor was scorched. Blood marked his temple. His dragon shadow no longer hung dead behind him. It trembled around his body like a beast standing just behind the skin, waiting to remember how to breathe. The enormous dragon's soul had not fully returned to him. Not yet. It burned inside the lantern, larger than before, folded into silver-gold flame with eyes like molten stars. It looked at the king, then at Maris, then at the lanterns above. Truth first. The words rolled through the crypt. Serelith lifted her head from where she still hung bound by the final chain. Her blind eyes shone with dead fire. Then let the court hear what the lanterns carry. Odravan stood near the broken stair. His staff cracked. His wingbone rings shattered across his bleeding fingers. He looked up at the burning lanterns, and for one terrible breath, Maris saw him not as a priest, not as a judge, not as a keeper of relics, but as a man whose entire power depended on silence, staying dead. Extinguish them, he ordered. No one moved. The guards had seen too much. Veyr stood apart from him now. One hand clamped over her torn necklace. Half the black pearls were gone. The rest trembled at her throat, glowing and darkening as if they could not decide whether to release what they held or swallow it again. Odravan turned on her. Veyr. She flinched at the old command in his voice. Maris saw the struggle cross her face. Pride, shame, fear, the desperate instinct to obey the man who had promised her a place beside the throne. The awful knowledge that obedience had made her a cage for another soul. Veyr's fingers closed around the remaining pearls. For a moment, Maris thought she would protect them. Then Veyr tore the necklace from her throat. Blood welled where the pearls had rooted under the skin. She threw the necklace onto the crypt floor. It landed between her and Odravan. I will not wear his soul anymore, she said. Her voice shook, but it did not break. The dragon flame in Maris's lantern bowed its head once. Not forgiveness. Witness. Odravan's face twisted. You think this makes you clean? No, Veyr whispered. It makes me late. The word struck Maris harder than she expected. Late. The lantern had whispered that when she approached it. Perhaps every truth in this hall was late. Late to return. Late to speak. Late to save the women and dragons already burned. But late was not never. Maris lifted the lantern. The silver-gold fire inside it streamed toward Veyr's broken necklace. One by one, the remaining pearls cracked. Soul sparks flew free, darting upward into the burning lanterns above. The flames grew stronger. Odravan backed away. Cassian stepped forward. This time, The court above saw him through the split floor. The nobles of the Wing Hall had gathered around the opening, staring down into the crypt with faces pale under the reflected dragonfire. They saw the lanterns. They saw Serelith pinned in chains. They saw Veyr bleeding at the throat. They saw Odraven retreat from the light he had claimed to guard. Cassian looked up at them. "Listen," he commanded. The lanterns spoke, not all at once. "Honor be one. I carried King Theron's dragon through plague fire. They called me false when his beast recognized me. I held the last flame of the northern hatchery. Odraven's predecessor burned my name before dawn. I was a border bride. I carried a wounded dragon soul for 3 days. When it healed, they gave the honor to a noblewoman. I was chosen by the lantern before the king saw me. They buried me, so he never would. I was not cursed. I was not false. I was not empty. I carried fire. Maris could hardly breathe. Each voice passed through the spectral wings behind her, but none stayed trapped inside her. They rose through the crypt, through the broken floor, into the wing hall above. The dead wing scales hanging from the ceiling rang each name into the court like bells made from bone and flame. The nobles listened because they had no choice. Servants listened because no one had ever given them this much truth at once. Cassian listened with his head bowed. That mattered. A king hearing what his throne had survived by not hearing. Serelith's final chain began to glow. Odraven saw it and lunged. He snatched a broken wingbone ring from the floor and drove its jagged edge into his palm. Black dead fire erupted from his blood, racing toward the lanterns overhead. "If the dead speak long enough," he shouted, "the living kingdom falls." The black fire struck the nearest lantern. It cracked. The tiny dragon soul inside screamed. Maris moved without thinking. She thrust her lantern upward, and the enormous spectral wings behind her swept wide. Silver gold fire met black dead fire in the air. The force drove her backward into Cassian. He braced behind her, both hands near hers, still not closing over the handle until she nodded once. Then he helped her hold. Together, they forced the black fire back. Odraven snarled and pushed harder. The dead fire split into dozens of streams, each one seeking a lantern, a soul spark, a name. Maris felt the strain tear through her shoulders. "I cannot hold them all." Serelith's voice came through the storm. "Do not hold. Open." Maris understood. A wing lantern bride did not keep the fire. She carried it to the door. She looked up at the broken ceiling, at the wing hall, at the night sky visible beyond the high black windows. Dragons had not been meant to burn forever in glass. Neither had brides' names. Maris lifted her face. "Lanterns of dead wings," she said, voice shaking but clear. "You were not made to imprison dragon souls." Every lantern turned toward her. "You were made to guide them home." The black iron frames began to open. Odraven screamed. Cassian's dragon soul inside Maris's lantern roared with all the force it had been denied for years. The sound cracked the final chain around Serelith. Her pinned spectral wings tore free from the hooks, and she fell forward, catching herself with both hands on the stone. Free. The word moved through the crypt like dawn. Above them, every black lantern opened its glass. Dragon soul sparks rose in a storm. They did not burn the court. They did not devour the hall. They flew. Silver gold flames spiraled upward, passing through the broken floor, through the dead wing scales, through the high arches, and into the night beyond. The sky above Ashbourne filled with dragon-shaped fire, hundreds of small spirits lifting toward the stars. Maris laughed once through tears. Then Cassian's lantern went dark. The dragon soul inside it had not flown upward. It remained, coiled, watching him, watching her. Odraven staggered back, ruined but not defeated. If you return it now, it will bind to her. The dragon chose her first. The king will belong to a cursed bride." The court above went silent. There it was, the fear beneath every lie. Not that Maris would die, that she would matter. Cassian turned toward her. The dragon soul inside the lantern pressed one claw to the glass. Maris felt the choice waiting. If she opened the lantern fully, his dragon might return through her. The court would call it bond, claim, bride, ownership. They would crown a story before she could breathe inside it. Cassian seemed to understand. "You do not have to carry me farther," he said. Maris's throat tightened. Serelith watched from the broken chain circle. Varel watched from the edge of the light. The entire court watched from above, hungry for an ending it could name. Maris looked at the lantern, then at the Dragon King. "I will carry the truth," she said. His eyes held hers, not the claim. Cassian bowed his head. "Truth first." The dragon soul exhaled. Then it spoke to them both. "Truth is the path." The lantern of dead wings opened one final time. Not toward Maris, not toward Cassian, between them. And beneath the wing hole, the Dragon King's missing soul began to return without making the cursed bride its cage. The Dragon King's missing soul returned as a flame between two open hands. Not taken, not claimed, not forced through Maris's body, like every frightened noble in the wing hall expected. The lantern of dead wings unfolded between her and Cassian, its black iron frame opening like a flower made from claws, bones, and old grief. Silver gold dragonfire poured from the glass, not upward toward the sky like the freed soul sparks, not inward toward Maris's chest, but forward into the space between bride and king. A passage, not a chain. Cassian stood still while the first wave of soul fire touched him. The force drove him to one knee. Maris moved instinctively, but stopped before she reached for him. She remembered what it felt like to have a court assume her hands existed only to carry what men could not survive. She would not make the same mistake in reverse. She would not turn his returning soul into proof that she had saved him without asking whether he could bear being whole. Cassian lifted his head. Pain carved itself across his face, but his eyes remained on the lantern. "Continue," he said. Maris's fingers tightened around the lantern frame. "Not if it destroys you." A faint, broken smile touched his mouth. It was gone almost before she saw it. "I have been destroyed quietly for years." The dragon's soul flared. The dead shadow behind him projected through the broken floor into the wing hall above, convulsed. Wings unfolded along the wall for the first time, with real movement. Claws scraped across stone. A tail lashed through torchlight. The entire court watched the Dragon King's shadow become less like a painting and more like a beast remembering blood. Odravin crawled backward across the crypt floor. "No," he rasped. "No, no, no. If it returns untethered, it will judge us." Serelith, freed from her chains at last, stood slowly behind him. Her spectral wings hung torn but open, glowing with pale fire. "Then, be judged." Odravin lurched for the broken staff. Varel stepped on it before his hand reached the wood. He looked up at her. For one breath, the old power still lived between them. The command, the promise, the fear of becoming nothing if she stopped obeying the man who had made her useful. Then Varel bent, picked up the staff, and snapped it across her knee. It was not easy. The wood cut into her palm. Black dead fire crawled up her wrist. Her face tightened with pain, but she did not cry out. The staff broke. Odravin stared at the pieces, as if his own spine had cracked with them. Virel threw the halves at his feet. "I will answer for what I wore, but not for what you still command." Odravin's expression twisted. Without me you are no bride." She swallowed. The words found an old wound. But they did not own her anymore. "Then I will learn who I am, without stolen fire." Maris looked at her, across the lantern light. There was no forgiveness between them. Not yet, maybe not ever. But there was truth, and for this hall, truth was already a kind of fire. Cassian cried out. The dragon's soul surged harder. Maris turned back as silver-gold flame poured into him through the space before his chest. His armor split at the seams, not from damage, but from pressure. Black plates cracked open to reveal lines of living gold beneath his skin. His dead dragon shadow rose behind him through the hall and the crypt at once, wings spreading wider and wider until the whole wing hall fell under its shape. The court above dropped to its knees, not because anyone ordered them, because the dragon looked at them. Not Cassian. The dragon. Its eyes opened fully in his shadow, vast and molten, and furious with years of silence. Odravan screamed. "It will kill us." Cassian's voice came through clenched teeth. "No." The dragon shadow snarled. Cassian forced himself upright, one hand braced on the stone, the other open toward the fire. No, the command was not for the court. It was for his own soul. Maris understood then what return truly meant. Not being filled with power, not being made whole in some clean, beautiful rush. It meant facing the rage that had been locked away with the wound. It meant choosing what not to burn when burning would be deserved. The dragon's soul trembled. Maris lifted the lantern higher. "Truth first," she whispered. The dragon looked at her. So did Cassian. Maris did not lower her eyes. "You do not become whole by making them fear you," she said. "They feared lies for years. Let them fear truth instead." The dragon's wings shook. Cassian breathed once. Then again, the silver-gold flame entered him fully. The lantern went dark. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Cassian knelt in silence with his head bowed, armor cracked, blood on his mouth, one hand pressed to the stone. His dragon shadow vanished from the wall. The court above began to murmur. Odravan laughed. It was a ruined sound, but it carried. "Dead, do you see? His dragon soul was too damaged to return. I kept him alive. I kept him king." Maris stared at Cassian. "No," she whispered. Not denial, refusal. She stepped toward him. This time, she did touch him. Not to carry his soul, not to claim, only to place one soot-marked, burned hand against his shoulder and remind him there was still a world outside the wound. Cassian. His name left her mouth before title could stop it. The crypt held its breath. Beneath her palm, something moved. A pulse. Slow. Then another. Gold light opened beneath Cassian's skin, spreading from his ribs to his throat, down his arms, through his hands. The air behind him split with the sound of wings unfurling. Not shadow wings. Real soul wings. A massive dragon of silver-gold fire rose from his back, not separate from him, not caged behind him, but alive within him and around him. Its body formed from flame, smoke, and ancient rage made conscious. It lowered its head over Cassian's shoulder and looked at Maris. Then it bowed. The wing hall above went utterly silent. Serelith bowed her head too, not in submission, but in completion. "The soul returned," she whispered, "and did not consume the bride." Cassian opened his eyes. They were no longer still amber. They burned gold at the center, alive, wounded, and awake. The first thing he saw was Maris's hand on his shoulder. The second was the empty lantern in her other hand. He covered her hand lightly with his own, then stopped before his fingers could close. Still asking. Even now, Maris let her hand remain. For one breath. Then she drew it back. Cassian let her. That was when the court understood. Something had changed more deeply than magic. Odraven tried to run. He made it 3 steps before every opened lantern above the crypt turned toward him. The freed dragon soul sparks did not leave the sky. They descended as thin lines of silver-gold fire, circling him, Serelith, Maris, Cassian, and the broken pearls on the floor. Cassian rose. His dragon moved with him. "Odraven of the Wing Temple," he said, voice carrying into the Wing Hall above. "You severed my dragon soul and called the wound discipline. You burned Wing Lantern brides and called them cursed. You fed soul sparks into pearl necklaces, bone rings, and court rites. You taught this kingdom to fear the women who carried what dragons could not survive losing." Odraven shook his head. "I preserved the crown." Maris stepped beside Cassian, the empty lantern in her hand heavier than when it had held fire. "You preserved silence," she said. The freed lanterns rang. Serelith lifted her torn wings. "And silence has ended." The silver-gold fire closed around Odraven's hands first. His wingbone rings crumbled into ash. Tiny trapped sparks flew free, each one rising into the air with a faint wing beat. Then the fire wrapped around his throat, not choking him, but burning away every false rite he had spoken in the name of protection. His voice changed, not gone, unmasked. He began to speak names. Not willingly, truth pulled them from him. Ashara of the Red Veil, burned after carrying Prince Maelric's dragon through fever. Leora Wingborn, sealed in lantern glass after the northern battle. Serelith, first bride they failed to burn. Name after name poured from him, each one becoming flame above the crypt. The Wing Hall heard them. The servants heard them. The nobles heard them. Lady Varel sank to her knees and wept silently, as each name broke another pretty lie she had worn. Odraven would not be killed quickly. Cassian made that clear. "You will speak every name before the court," he said. "Every soul taken, every bride burned, every king kept incomplete, every pearl filled, every ring carved. You will live long enough for the kingdom to hear what you buried." Odraven's face collapsed, not from pain, from the horror of being forced to preserve what he had tried to erase. When dawn began to pale the high windows of the Wing Hall, Serelith climbed the stairs with Maris beside her. Cassian followed one step behind, not ahead. The court saw the order and understood its meaning before anyone spoke. The cursed bride returned first. The first Wing Lantern bride returned beside her. The Dragon King came after, whole but not enthroned by their suffering. Maris stepped into the Wing Hall with the empty lantern of dead wings in her hands. It no longer looked like an execution relic. Its black glass had turned clear. Inside, no flame burned. Instead, tiny silver-gold motes drifted like sleeping stars, ready to guide, not imprison. The nobles lowered their eyes. The wing scales overhead no longer whispered like dry bones. They chimed. Cassian stood before his throne but did not sit. His dragon, now visible in the living shadow around him, folded its spectral wings and waited. "From this dawn forward," he said, "the lantern of dead wings will never again be used to condemn a bride, cursed girl, village daughter, or any woman brought before this court as proof of fear. The Wing Crypt will be opened. Every lantern will be named. Every pearl will be broken. Every bride burned by false rite will be restored to record." His gaze moved to Varel. She did not lift her chin proudly this time. She stood bare-throated, the pearl marks still bleeding. "You will answer for what you carried," Cassian said. "I know," she whispered. Maris looked at her for a long moment. "And you will answer as yourself, not as Odraven's chosen bride." Varel closed her eyes once. A punishment. A merce. A beginning she did not deserve, but had been given responsibility to survive. Then Cassian looked at Maris. The hall changed. It wanted the old ending. Everyone felt it. The court hungered for a story simple enough to swallow. Dragon soul returns, cursed bride revealed, king claims true bride, throne restored. A clean ending to make the dirty truth more beautiful. Cassian did not give it to them. Maris Vale owes this court no vow, he said. No title, no bridal claim, no forgiveness for being dragged here in chains and named cursed before she was heard. Maris's throat tightened, his voice softened, but did not weaken. If she stands in this hall again, it will be because she chooses to carry witness, not because my dragon soul found refuge in her hands. The dragon behind him lowered its head. Maris looked at the lantern, then at Cyrillith, then at the court that had wanted her burned. I will stand as witness, she said, for the lanterns, for the brides, for the girls cursed because your fear needed names. The hall remained silent. Maris lifted the empty lantern. But I will not be called bride by any law that cannot ask me first. Cassian bowed his head. Before the court, before the lantern, before her, then the law will learn to ask. Outside, dawn struck the black windows. Silver gold light spilled through the wing hole, touching the cleared lantern glass, the freed wing scales, the broken pearls on the floor, and the Dragon King, standing crownless beneath his living dragon shadow. Maris Vale had entered the hall as a cursed bride, meant to burn false. She left the altar as the wing lantern bride, who carried a king's missing dragon soul back without becoming its cage. And when the lantern of dead wings glowed softly in her hands, every dragon wing in the hall lowered toward her, not to claim her, to remember.